Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've been talking about Prophet Idris alayhi salam, or Enoch. And we took a little bit of a break yesterday, and I spoke to you about the different ulum that are being talked about in the Quran. And there are several ulum that have been mentioned in the Quran, and also if you consider the book of a hadith, we have several ulum, and the quantity of these ulum is probably beyond human comprehension. And over the period of time, as we make more research, we'll come to realize that there's so much that is in these resources that we have not yet understood. Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi, he wrote a book called Qanun al-Ta'wil, in which he writes that when it comes to the ulum al-Quran, the quantity of the ulum that are discussed in the Quran reaches up to 77,450 different ulum that are different branches of knowledge that are discussed in the Quran, which is inclusive of adab, it is inclusive of science, it is inclusive of social and other different kinds of aspects. As I spoke to you about, the Quran talks about theology, Quran talks about grammar, syntax, pronunciation, morphology, linguistics, fundamentals of science, talks about laws and jurisprudence. Quran talks about laws of inheritance, talks about science of war, history, talks about literature, talks about algebra, talks about philosophy, political science, ethics, sociology, culture, physics, economics, chemistry, biology, botany, and so many, zoology, pharmacology, embryology, cosmology, astronomy, geography, geology, archaeology, so many of them, timekeeping, so many different branches. And some of this ilm or knowledge was given to Enoch or Sayyidina Idris alayhi salam that we have been talking about. And inshallah, some other day we'll talk about astronomy as a sign of Allah's power and wisdom, and why astronomy was given as a special branch of knowledge to Enoch, or why were the secrets of universe revealed to Enoch. We talked about the details of that last time, but people wanted to know a little bit more about Enoch in terms of where was he born, where did he move, and how did he move, why did he move, did anybody move with him, and many other aspects. And as far as the timeline is concerned, you need to understand that Idris alayhi salam came after Syed alayhi salam. So these were the times when humanity was going through deterioration. These were the times when the followers of Qabil were spreading, and the sins among them were spreading. Initially, they were just doing sins. They were not idol worshippers. They were still believing in oneness of God. They were just sinful. They would just break laws. They wouldn't follow the laws given to them by Adam alayhi salam and Syed alayhi salam. They would just follow their desires. But by the time it was the time of Idris alayhi salam, this thing grew even stronger, and they went into the idol worshipping route. In the books which talked about the Qasasul Quran, it is mentioned that Idris alayhi salam was most probably born in Babylon. So Babylon has a history, and we know a little bit about the history of Babylon. Maybe people go as far as a little before the Ubaid culture. We talked about that in great detail. The people who lived in Babylon, the land of Sumerians, thousands and thousands of years before the Sumerians. We went as far as 10,000 or 15,000 BC. But when exactly Enoch came, or Idris alayhi salam came, we don't really know. Yes, there are mentioned that his name was Enoch or Enoch, or Idris in Arabic. He's the son of Yared bin Mahlail, who is the son of Qinan, who is the son of Anosh, who is the son of Sheeth, who is the son of Adam alayhi salam. That's exactly what Ibn Ishaq wrote. And he was friends with angels, and several times he traveled into the heavens. Now, we talked about the concept of portals last time, and someone said that why portals? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all willing and He can do things without portal. Of course, inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. But He created the portals. And if you open Surah Al-Ma'arij, you will come to know that angels also take these portals, these special routes made for traveling purposes from the heavens to the earth and up. So these portals, these bridges, have been built for a reason. And Idris alayhi salam was friends with angels, and there is a whole story about he speaking to angels and traveling up into the heavens and all of that. So, but that's not our concentration today. We'll just concentrate on what we would like to talk about in particular today. So Idris alayhi salam had an honor of meeting Sheeth alayhi salam, even though he was several generations above Idris alayhi salam. And not only that he met with him, but he also learned from him. As one of the famous scholars, Shahrastani, says that Aqthadhimon was the name of Sheeth alayhi salam. Anyway, when Enoch or Idris alayhi salam reached a certain age, he was bestowed with the honor of prophethood. Now remember, prophets are born prophet. It's just like certain point of time in their life, they are ordered to now go to the people with the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the bi'tha. His bi'tha happened when he reached a certain age. And at that time, it was a time when everywhere there was fasad fil ard. Everywhere people were breaking the laws of Sharia that was given to them by Adam alayhi salam and Sheeth alayhi salam. A handful of people accepted the right path under the leadership of Idris alayhi salam. Majority of the people chose to follow their desires. When Idris alayhi salam spent years after years after years preaching them, he finally decided to leave the land of Babylon and travel somewhere farther. So when he expressed this idea to his followers were not in favor of this move, as they were of the view that we live between the Euphrates and Tigris. In Babylon, it's a land of opportunity. It's a land of growth. It's a fertile land. Where can we find such a beautiful land? But Idris alayhi salam said, don't worry. Take some hardship, bear some hardship for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will reward you. You never know what else is out there because you have never left this land. Anyway, they finally agreed with him and they decided to leave. And then Idris alayhi salam traveled from Iraq, Babylon, all the way to Egypt. As this group of people migrated and reached the banks of the river Nile, they realized that there are other sources of water which can be used for irrigation, which can be used to sustain life. So they were very happy. And then Idris alayhi salam ordered them to settle along the banks of the river Nile. And it was called the Babylon, after the Babel, or the Babel, or the Babylon. And for a long time, they would call this settlement Babylon, and it was around the banks of the river Nile. And Idris alayhi salam continued to preach, and Idris alayhi salam knew over 70 languages in which he would preach people. At that time, this region was not called Masr or Misr, and this became the settling grounds of the children of Ham. There was a child of Ham by the name of Masr. So when the Masr bin Ham and his offspring settled in this region, that's where Arabs started calling it Masr or Misr. So Idris alayhi salam, while he was preaching people in the 72 languages he knew, he would also help them establish better human norms, social norms, and he would give them rulings, and he would help them plan their cities and establish their kingdoms. And it also comes in the Qasas al-Quran that in his lifetime, humanity grew so big that there were hundreds of cities or 200 cities of different sizes in which people were settled. And among those cities, the smallest of the cities were the city of Raha. Similarly, as Idris alayhi salam was teaching different fields, to his students, he also taught them wisdom. He also taught them astronomy, or ilm al-nujum. And I made this very, I made this distinction pretty clear in our last lecture too, that astronomy and astrology are two different things. Idris alayhi salam was given the knowledge of astronomy. That's what he was propagating, and that what he was promoting. Astrology is shirk. Astrology is a sin according to the Islamic teachings. Anyway, so just wanted to be clear, because sometimes people get confused, even though I clearly gave the definition of both of them and clearly stated that Idris alayhi salam was promoting astronomy, the knowledge of the universe, the planets, the stars. There's a whole science behind it. And I also told you that why was he given this knowledge and what were the practical implementations of that knowledge. Well, Idris alayhi salam, depending on the regions, he made different laws and rulings for different people, different groups and different ummahs, and then he divided them into 4 different regions. And for each region, he made somebody a ruler. And for each of the regions, he made laws and rules and regulations. So in the books of Qasas al-Quran, it states that these 4 kings that he created were Elawos, Zos, Escalbos, and Zosamun, or Elavosamun, or Basilos. And they were all taught the same thing, that is, believing in the oneness of God, and believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one true God, who is the creator, who provides you for the sustenance, and one day you will all return to Him. And this world will come to an end. There will be a day of judgment, after which your fate will be decided, whether those who will go in Jahannam will go in Jahannam, and those who will go in Jannah will go in Jannah. Similarly, he taught them to stay away from things that are harmful to your body, intoxications, for example. Similarly, eating of the haram animals. He gave them laws of halal and haram. He gave them laws of fasting 3 days in a month, which will be the 13th, 14th, and 15th of every lunar month, which is called the Ayyam al-Bayt, when the moon is the brightest. And then he told his people a few days of celebrations, and using the knowledge of astronomy that he gained, he told them when to celebrate which one of the Eid celebrations. And Idris alayhi salam also told his people that I'm not the only prophet. There will be prophet after me. So when you are at the time of one of those prophets sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you must follow them. And the prophets sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the innocent souls. They will call you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will have the same message as I'm giving you. So Idris alayhi salam was made to rule all 4 regions in which he divided the ummahs, the 200 some cities that were under his governance. So he decided to divide each one of those areas into different categorizations. One will be the people who will be invested 100% in the religious services. Then there will be people who will be invested in the administrative roles, and then there will be a common man. And then these people, of course, through the learning process or through the skills, can move from one order to another order. Religious people were put at the forefront, as they were the one who were responsible for the cleansing of the soul, and governing laws must be implemented, and the whole law and order must be maintained. And the kings were kept in the second degree, as they were to follow the laws that are given to them. And then the common man or common person will be to follow the laws implemented by the administration. Among the 4 kings, the most steadfast king on all these rules and regulations was Escalibos. And he was extremely upset on the demise of Idris alayhi salam, or Enoch. However, after the passing of Idris alayhi salam, people started creating his pictures in the temples. And that basically caused some disturbance in the times to come. Because it had been a norm that one generation would create pictures and the future generations would start worshipping those pictures. Ascalabos was the ruler of a region which after the Great Flood came to known as Greece. And these people, when they found the remains of those temples that were built at the time of Enoch, they made more out of these images and they started worshipping them. And some of them got confused between Enoch and Ascalabos, and some of them started worshipping Ascalabos, or some of them mistook Ascalabos that he was Enoch. Well, these are some of the details we find about Idris alayhi salam, or Enoch. And if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the book of Enoch, what are the different chapters? How many chapters are there? What are the different themes? And some of the information that is found in that book. And who is this book attributed to? And is it one of the canonical books? When did we find them? Where did we find this book? And many other details about the book of Enoch. Please write me in the comment section below. And then we will start a series where we will start looking into the book of Enoch and what it has to offer and how much of it actually aligns with the Quran and Hadith. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.